Hello and welcome. It is my first video of 2018. It's amazing to think that about 10 years ago in 2008, I was sitting around my small apartment in Shimane-kan wondering, what can I make videos about on this new YouTube thing that will be interesting? And I came up with the idea of making videos about my time as a jet on the JET program and how to become an ALT and what to bring when you move to Japan and what it's like to work in Japan. And that's really where it all started. I had made videos for a little while in 2007. I had a really poor camera and it only filmed for like a minute. I had a bad card in it, a memory card and stuff. And I never showed my face. And 2008 was really where I started to vlog and put myself out there and make more videos. And I started to get a lot more viewers, and the channel took off. The channel you're watching now, My Argonauts. And of course, that led to the Sumo channel, which is now my #1 channel. And this annual kind of tradition started. I don't know that I've been doing it every year, of course, for 10 years. One year I was home. I went home for a year between JET and when I went back to work at the university. But every year I've lived in Japan, I've subscribed to basically what's the Yomiuri Shimbun. Shimbun means newspaper in Japanese, the English language version. It used to be called, what was the name of it? I've forgotten. Man, don't get old. It used to be called something else. The Daily Yomiuri? Yeah, the Daily Yomiuri, I think is what it was called. Anyway, it's now called the Japan News, which is much less interesting title for a newspaper. And anyway, I still subscribe. So every year, around the end of the year, they put out two one-page sheets like this with the top international stories and the top domestic news stories of the year as voted on by the readers of the newspaper. Now, let's see here. The Yomiuri Shimbun asked its readers to choose the top 10 domestic news stories of the year. A total of 17,143 readers voted. And so by them using the word Yomiuri Shimbun, I'm assuming this is a poll they put out in the Japanese version of the newspaper as well, not just the English language version, and hence they got a lot of replies. Selecting 10 from a big list that they put out. And they had a couple weeks to do it. 16,886 people gave valid answers, and here are the ones they chose. So I go down them. Now, I'll probably just let this video be a little bit long and do both lists in one video, as opposed to doing one for domestic and one for international. So we're going to start with domestic, and because international is going to be more familiar to many of you, you can guess right now what the #1 international news story was, I think. It has to do with somebody in America. But I don't think you would guess the #1 news story in Japan. I didn't even really know about this news story. I had heard a little bit about it, but I got to admit, ever since I got Apple TV configured the way I like it on my television, I watch a lot of YouTube now on my big TV. And I watch very little Japanese TV anymore. I almost never just kind of troll the channel, see what's on, watch random shows or the news or anything. I almost never do it anymore. I'm always watching Netflix, just like everybody in the world, or a movie, or I'm watching YouTube. And so I think I heard whiffs of this, and of course I get the paper every day, but I don't always have time to read it, and the front page is not domestic news, it's generally like world news, and I don't always crack open to the domestic news on page 2 and 3. So anyway, the #1 story is Kien Shoji player Fuji heads the year. So shogi is a kind of like Japanese chess. I'll put a link to the Wikipedia page. I mean, you guys can Google it easily as well. But basically, the reason he captivated the nation, as the article says, is he's a 4th Dan player, and I think Ichi one, Ichidan would be the best. So he's pretty close to being like a really good player. I think there's 7 or 8 Dans in the whole ranking. If it's like Kendo, Kendo's got that Dan ranking system. He's only a junior high school student, and he set a record of 29 official straight wins, debuting in December of last year by defeating a 4th Dan player at that time in the first round of a title match. No, that doesn't make sense. He had a title match in June maybe to get his 4th Dan title. Anyway, nobody's done this in competitive shogi since 1986, 1987, when somebody won 28 consecutive wins. So he got one more than that person, and he's only 14 years old. So there he is. People love stories like that here in Japan, and that was voted #1, believe it or not. So I didn't really even know that much about that. Number 2, not too surprising, the Emperor. We know him as Akihito, but they haven't announced, of course, what they're going to call his era. We're living in the Heisei era, so I'm guessing that it stays the same. If somebody knows, you can let me know. Emperor Heisei, if you want to call him that. He's in his 80s, and he's been doing the job since he was 55. He became emperor in 1989, and he just he has to do about 24 official things every year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's 2 a month for an older person, maybe more. His wife's also very elderly and frail, but she's a lovely woman every time I see her on a program or something. And he also has to, like when people come to visit from other nations, heads of state, he has to, greet them. He also flies to other countries from time to time. Of course, anytime there's a disaster, an earthquake or something, he has to go and help console the people. So he keeps pretty busy, and he is in his late 80s. I know people in Britain are like, well, the Queen, mate. She's, well, I don't even know how old Queen Elizabeth is, but she's been doing it for a long time too. So anyway, he wants to step down. He knows his health is not that great, and this has never happened before in Japan. Every emperor has just died while being emperor, and then the son takes over. And it's a big deal here. He has no political power. He's just a figurehead, but he's asked to step down. So there's no law on the books how to do that. So they had to figure out, okay, well, how is this going to happen? What are we going to call him after he's finished being emperor? Where does he live? Blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. So they figured it out, and they're going to, let him do it. Obviously, they were going to let him do it. But it's all set to happen in 2019, which I think is good. It's about a year before the Olympics are going to be here. And his son, Crown Prince Naruhito, will take the throne on May 1st. Now, those of you who know a little bit about Japan know that the beginning of May is a period in Japan called Golden Week. And I've heard, sorry, a little Dr. Pepper here. It's Japanese Dr. Pepper. I've heard that they're going to let, like Golden Week is normally like 3 holidays and then another holiday. And if you smush them all together, if they land on the right days, you can kind of take a week off of work. Sometimes not so much for teachers because school's open anyway on like one of those inside days. But anyway, I've heard they're going to give everybody like 10 days off. Like literally Golden Week, they're going to add a few more and add a few more. And everyone's going to get from like, April 29th to like May 9th off or something like that. So it's going to be a huge deal when it happens here in 2019. And huge, it's been so long since you've had one in England. A coronation, that's the word I'm looking for, where a new monarch has been installed in office because Queen Elizabeth was the last one in the 50s, right? So, and I wasn't around. I wasn't really cognizant of what was going on in Japan in 1989. I don't know exactly what the ceremony's like. If you were around in Japan in 89 or you know about it, leave a comment and tell us what it was like. But so that's a big deal. That's all set up to go. And the calendars that year will all be weird because, it'll start with, because it just started, Heisei 30 started. the year of the emperor 30, because and that's actually used quite a lot here in Japan. They also use 2018, but if you teach at a school, if you become a teacher, you'll see, the kanji and then the number 30 on a lot of dates where the year would normally go. And like when you fill out forms a lot of the time, it always asks you for your birth, the year of your birth in whatever year, for me it's Showa. Well, most people it's Showa because, you'd have to be pretty young to be, well, I guess you could be in your, yeah, I guess some of you watching were born in Heisei after 1989. But anyway, I was born in Showa 44, for instance. So the reign of that previous emperor, the 44th year of his reign, 1969. But anyway, so it's going to be a big deal. But that's a whole another year away, but they've set up everything. And so that was the second news story. Now, sumo, as you know, is near and dear to my heart, has two stories in the top 10 domestic. One's a good one, and one, of course, is not so good. So the number 3 is the not so good one. Padma Fuji quits over violence at drinking party. So again, I've got, if you're interested in this story, I can put a link down in the description. On my sumo channel, I made a whole video about it. The retirement of Padma Fuji. He had to retire from the sport. He was the grand champion, the top-ranked man. There's actually 4 of them right now, but he was one of them, and he was my favorite wrestler. And it's unfortunate the way it all played out. Yeah, I mean it hasn't happened. Well, Asashoru had to retire, but not quite under the same circumstances, and that was way back in 2010. So it was a big deal in the way it played out, and the guy in sumo that's kind of behind it all, Takanohana, it captivated people certainly for a while. The next is a story, another kind of royal family story about Princess Mako. Unofficial engagement announced. There'll be an official engagement, but very good-looking couple. She is the eldest daughter of Prince Akishino. So, nobody in line to the throne. He's like, Naruhito. Prince Naruhito is the guy that's going to become the emperor. So it's kind of like Harry. I know his wedding to Megan Mullally or whatever her name is. Megan Mullally, I think, is the actress in what's that show about the gay guy and the straight girl? Oh my God, I can't remember. Anyway, it's not her name's not Megan Mullally. Anyway, if Harry and this Megan woman, when they get married, if they have a daughter, this is what this daughter would be. Second, like brother to the person that's going to be the king, daughter. Yeah. So, but it's still a big deal, and they're young and they're very good looking. And in the Japanese system, if a woman marries a non-royal person, which he's just a classmate that they met at university. His name is Kei Komura. They have to leave the imperial family, so she's no longer a princess, and she just becomes Komura-san, Mrs. Komura. So good for her. So that'll be a big deal. They'll have a big announcement, and the wedding will be a big deal. Does it say when the wedding is going to happen? The wedding is set for November 4th of this year. All right. Then the LDP wins landslide victory. So the interesting thing is this is coupled with the number 9 story over here. Sorry, this way. About the cabinet approval rating. So back in July, they took a poll, and Abe, the Prime Minister of Japan, his approval rating went all the way down to like 12%. Really low. I mean, like Trump, worse than Trump numbers. Just before that, just after that, that was in July. This is in October. The LDP, his party, basically, combined with another party, the Komeito party, won 313 of the 465 lower house seats in the Japanese Diet, which is like their parliament. And it was a landslide victory, and he has been prime minister now for like 5 years, which ever since I moved to Japan in 2004, it's like we've had a different prime minister every year. Like literally, like there was like 9 or 10 of them, but before Abe came along. 5 years ago. And now he's been in power for quite a while, and he has no intention of giving it up. I mean, he definitely wants to be prime minister during the Olympics and everything. So, and the people are still voting for him. So even though his approval ratings went way down, there's nobody that can really step up. If you know anything about Japan politics, the LDP has been entrenched in the position of power in this country really since Japan regained its independence after the occupation in World War II in the mid 50s, and has really held on for many years, and never really, there was like one time where they were defeated by a coalition of other parties, but it didn't last. All right, the next, a lot of sports stories as always. Number 6 is about a sprinter. His last name is Kiru, and he is the first Japanese man to break the 10-second barrier in the 100-meter dash, 100-yard, I say 100-yard, 100-meter dash. It was held here in Fukuiken on September 9th. So here in Japan, he got a 9, with the sign, a 9.98. So he's the first Japanese sprinter. And of course, if you remember, the Japanese men's relay team, I think in the previous Olympics in Rio, got a medal. One of the first times that a Japanese men's like running team had won an Olympic medal. So the Japanese men are sort of catching on and getting faster, and there you go. This is all just like people just, I mean, the propaganda for the Olympics. It was so much on like the New Year's Eve program, the Kohaku, that we watch here. This is like singing contest, and so much about the Olympics, and it's still over 2 years away. All right, number 7 was about the body parts of 9 people were found in this apartment, and they arrested this guy who they don't say how old he is. But yeah, 9 people he chopped up, and they were like strewn around his apartment. Pretty gross. Much nicer story, number 8. There's 2 giant pandas on loan from China that live in the Ueno Zoo. Ueno is a nice part of Tokyo. And they had a baby panda. Yay. And the cub was named Xiang, Xiang. I don't know how to pronounce Chinese, so Zhang Zhang. I don't. If somebody knows how to phonetically say the name, put it down in the comments. 320,000 people sent in suggestions for a name, and so they let the public name it. Shin Shin and Ri Ri are the parents, so they like these repetitive names. But yeah, very pandas here. People that love pandas everywhere. In my hometown of San Diego, the pandas at the San Diego Zoo are always, such a popular destination. Okay, then the cabinet story about the 12 going down to 12%. And the last thing, is a good sumo story. Kiseno Sato. At the very beginning of the year, it's hard to remember back to the beginning of the year, he was still an ozeki. He won the January tournament, and he had been the runner-up in the previous tournament with a 14-1 record. So they made him the highest rank of Yokozuna, and he started, and then he was in the March tournament and was fighting well. But on like the third to last day, he really hurt himself. Had to fight the last couple days, pretty injured. Ended up tying a very powerful Mongolian ozeki named Padma Fuji, and they had he had to beat him twice on the final day to win the championship, and he was able to do that. He beat him in regulation. Then they had a playoff, and he won the tournament. So he did win 2 tournaments back to back, which is generally the thing you need to become a Yokozuna, and then unfortunately the rest of the year he's been really on the injured list. He hasn't fought a full basho since then, so it's been very disappointing for the Japanese fans because they buy their ticket and they want to go. And the reason this was such a huge deal was he's the first Japanese-born Yokozuna in like 19 years. It was a long time. I think the last time they had a Japanese Yokozuna become a Yokozuna was in the late 1990s, and he retired in like 2001. So from 2001 to 2017, there hadn't been a Japanese-born Yokozuna. It had all been Mongolians. Ashishoru, Hakuho, Kakeru, and Padma Fuji. So that was big news. People are excited, and we had 4 Yokozuna now. And unfortunately, there was never a tournament in 2017 where all 4 were healthy and fighting each other. through the whole tournament, and so it was really sad. And now Padma Fuji's gone, so now we're back down to 3, and people say that Kakeru might have to retire this year because he's not very healthy. He sat out 2 tournaments in a row at the end of the last year. So if you're interested in sumo, the January Basho is about to start in about a week. Yeah, about a week. No, a little bit more than that. I don't have a calendar in front of me. I gotta buy a calendar for like right here above my monitor. Anyway, yeah, so he may, it depends how healthy he is. But if you're interested in that, go over to my sumo channel. Jason's All Sumo. Just type in Jason Sumo into YouTube and you'll find me. Yeah, and watch the Welcome to the Basho video. I'll explain what's going on. And then tune in for matches if you're interested. That'll all be starting the 14th, I think. 14th to the 28th is the January Basho. The Hatsu Basho, the first Basho of the new year. It takes place in Tokyo at the Kokugikan. And, guys, this is 20 minutes already, so I'm not going to do the international stories. I will do that in a separate video. And I'll probably put it up tomorrow, just so you don't have 2 videos back-to-back in your feed. You have something to look forward to tomorrow. Because, I don't put that many videos anymore. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about that, my plans for 2018, in the next video. But anyway, that was the top domestic news stories. Really surprised that the Shogi, I don't know if I'm saying that wrong or right. Kakikukeko, Kagi, Gi, Shogi. Okay, so it should be Shogi. It was the #1 story, but there you go. It'll be interesting to see if the Emperor comes one more time to watch sumo, because that's something he would often do, especially in the January Basho. He would come one day and watch and sit in the royal box, and he's only got this year and next year a chance to do it. So it'll be interesting to see if he shows up. People will go crazy if he does in the audience. All right, thanks guys for watching. And yeah, look, if you're interested in the international stories, and look at that name right there, you knew that was going to be involved. And from a Japanese perspective, what they felt was important in the world, then come back and watch that second video. Happy New Year! Thanks for watching, as always, and I will see you in the next video. Peace!